the real scary thing about this current WEF summit in Davos is they're going to be discussing Disease X. This is on their website. They're going to be preparing for Disease X. This is going to be happening January 17th. They put this on here at 11:30 their time. They're going to be discussing the fresh warnings from the WHO from the World Health Organization that an unknown disease X could result in 20 times more fatalities than the coronavirus pandemic. What novel efforts are needed to prepare healthcare systems for the multiple challenges ahead? This session is linked to the Partnership for Health System Sustainability and Resilience and the Collaborative Surveillance Initiative of the World Economic Forum. Simultaneous interpretation in English and Portuguese. They're going to be making sure that you can understand that in these two languages. So they're going to be talking about Disease X. And they're saying that Disease X could result in 20 times more fatalities than the coronavirus pandemic. This is one of the topics for discussion at the World Economic Forum, and that should be alarming to everybody after what happened during the coronavirus pandemic. The pandemic was probably the single event that was able to consolidate government power better than any other event in our life, if not history, in human history, perhaps. Certainly after 9/11, we certainly saw a big crackdown, and the government gained a lot more control, and we lost a lot of our own. We lost some privacy. We lost some things after 9/11, but I don't think we saw anything close to what happened during the COVID pandemic. So now they're saying there's going to be this disease X. They want to prepare for this disease X, which could be 20 times more lethal than COVID. Now, nothing in nature has ever been 20 times more lethal than COVID. Nothing in nature ever. You can look at even the worst plagues of plagues, and it wasn't ever 20 times worse than the pandemic. Nothing natural anyway. I'll just leave it at that. But what's really interesting about this is that this has been in discussion, and there's even a bill that's proposed in the U.S. legislature. There's discussions about preparing for Disease X. This is the new thing we should all be alarmed by. Watch this. This is the BBC talking about a lab that is actually preparing for Disease X. Watch this.
The British government has unveiled a new vaccine research facility where scientists are working to prevent future pandemics. It's located at Porton, a high-security research facility best known for its work on chemical warfare. Experts are preparing for what is known as Disease X, or the next pandemic virus. Our health correspondent Dominic Hughes was given rare access to the facility.
The delicate task of protecting the nation's health. This is one of the laboratories at Porton Down where scientists are analysing current threats, new variants of COVID, for example, and trying to identify new ones.
Okay, so Disease X is something kind of serious. Here's a report that was put out in 2021, Disease X, a hidden but inevitable creeping danger. Saying that to the editor, an old adage says prevention is better than cure. Nothing exemplifies this idea better than Disease X. According to the World Health Organization, Disease X represents the knowledge that a serious international epidemic could be caused by a pathogen currently unknown to cause human disease. So they're saying we've got to prepare for this, that it might sound like science fiction, but Disease X is something we must prepare for. In a list of diseases that the WHO considers high priority in terms of research and development, Disease X occupies a spot among diseases such as Ebola, Zika, and coronavirus COVID-19. Unexpected outbreaks of infectious disease have repeatedly rocked the medical confidence and have taken the medical world by surprise. So they're wanting to prepare for the next pandemic, Disease X. It gets worse or more interesting, however you want to look at it, but last year, the 118th Congress of 2023-2024 introduced H.R. 3832, also known as the Disease X Act of 2023. Disease X Act of 2023, if you could believe it or not. So what they want to do is establish a program at BARDA for developing medical countermeasures for viral threats with pandemic potential. Here's actually the press release by the senator that put this out. Senators Baldwin and Tillis lead the legislation to respond to future pandemics. U.S. Senators Tammy Baldwin a Democrat, and Tom Tillis, Republican, introduced the Disease X Act of 2023 to develop the necessary medical countermeasures to combat future pandemics. The COVID-19 pandemic showed the devastating consequences that deadly infectious disease epidemics can cause and the repercussions of not having the proper countermeasures in place to combat it. It's not a matter of if, but rather when our country will be grappling with another infectious disease outbreak, and we need to be as best prepared as possible to save lives, our economy, and our way of life, said Senator Baldwin. Regardless of whether the next pandemic is naturally occurring, accidentally released, or deliberately caused, we cannot afford to wait for the next viral threat to arise. That's why I'm joining my Republican and Democratic colleagues to take action to develop new antivirals, vaccines, and diagnostics for unknown threats so we are ready to respond to Disease X. And now it's being discussed at Davos. So quite scary. They talked about, there was like the Event 201. There was, which is like a test run of what would happen if a pandemic broke out. And then sure enough, a few months later, there was a pandemic that broke out, and they literally went through the exact same steps that they had at Event 201. And so a lot of people are raising their eyebrows, wondering, what the heck is this going to be about? They're preparing for this Disease X. Are we then going to see a Disease X? And is that Disease X, are they going to pump it up like they did this last time, where they had the death tickers on all the mainstream media, and they told us that a bunch of us were going to die, and everybody was frightened out of their minds. And, they did these polls where they asked young people, if you got COVID, what do you think you're going to die? And 30% of the people said, yes, I think I would die from COVID, which was not at all in line with actual reality. But the propaganda around it is what really caused COVID-19 to turn into a pandemic level. It was really just a lot of the what ifs, this might kill a bunch of us. So we must lock down. We must do all these things that ended up being very bad for society. The net gain was not positive. It was negative. And so a lot of people are wondering, are they going to have this Disease X roll out? And they pump it up and propagandize us into frightening us to death, saying it's 20 times deadlier than COVID-19. And then they're able to gain even more control over us and really implement the agendas that they're trying to fight against, because it's those libertarians, those pesky libertarians who want to make their own personal individual decisions for their private lives. Those pesky libertarians want to have that ability. And so this would be the way to ensure that it doesn't matter what they want. We'll just take it. So we will keep you posted on what is going to continue to be talked about at the World Economic Forum that is happening right now in Davos up until Thursday or Friday, I believe. Friday is when it ends. This whole week is when they're there. So we will keep you posted on all of the events happening there throughout the week. And hopefully, they just maybe, hey, you know what? Let's keep a positive attitude. Maybe they'll have meetings and they'll say, you know what? Let's stop pushing our agenda on people. Maybe it's a bad idea. One can hope.